distraction-free, and driving sober, which is not under the influence of alcohol or drugs, and then obeying all posted speed limits. Yet many drivers and passengers engage in risk-taking activities. So Gordon Graham, who is a nationally renowned risk management expert and speaker, he's spoken at our Vision Zero conference on multiple occasions. He has said something that really resonates with me, and that is, where there's ignorance, arrogance, and complacency, there's risk. So these are difficult human traits to conquer, but that's what we do through the work of Vision Zero. We work to increase the knowledge, change the attitudes and behaviors of those who engage in risky behavior. So Vision Zero launched in January of 2018. It provides leadership commitment to a comprehensive, multidisciplinary, aggressive, and proactive approach to improving safety. We launched it in partnership with the Governor's Office, several state cabinet agencies, and other private and public sector partners. Vision Zero partners include those in healthcare, private sector business, nonprofits, state and federal government partners, local political subdivisions, and the North Dakota State Legislature, the media, and many others. We are celebrating Vision Zero's 5-year anniversary. We hit 5 years in January of 2023. So you may be asking what we're doing to celebrate. There will be no party. We will continue to do the work of Vision Zero in celebration of achieving our goals. So North Dakota's Vision Zero initiative is administered through the state's Strategic Highway Safety Plan. And SHSP is a requirement by the federal government that all states must be in compliance with in order to achieve eligibility for safety funds through the federal government. State DOTs are responsible to meet the SHSP requirements. We're currently in the midst of an update to the Vision Zero plan. Our current plan was developed in 2018 and represents the 5-year period through 2023. And our upcoming plan will represent a period through 2028. So when we developed the plan 5 years ago, we started by looking at data. So we looked at the problems related to severe crashes, those involving fatality and serious injury. And you'll see on the slide here that these are the priority emphasis areas that we address in the plan currently. And as we update the 2023 plan, we are finding through data that the priority emphasis areas and other areas of emphasis will remain the same. So what are we doing to solve the problems causing severe crashes in North Dakota? The North Dakota Vision Zero initiative focuses on the following solutions to severe crashes. We conduct widespread public education and outreach. We have a comprehensive annual media plan that we follow where we are promoting one Vision Zero topic or another throughout the course of a federal fiscal year. Our media campaigns include TV, radio, social media, earned media, print materials, and then coinciding outreach activities that are conducted through our partners, including our Vision Zero community outreach coordinators. Vision Zero works with the legislature to ensure state laws represent best practices in traffic safety. You heard the governor speak this morning about the advocacy effort for a primary seatbelt law in North Dakota. And Governor Burgum asked for our help to advance that and make it a reality. So I would ask you to contact your legislators if you're so inclined to ask for their support of a primary seatbelt bill. Vision Zero also works to implement policies that support driver and passenger safety. Our law enforcement partners at the state, local, county, and city level work to conduct high visibility enforcement of existing laws. This includes various enforcement campaigns that you're likely familiar with, including Click It or Ticket, Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over, You Text, You Drive, You Pay, and Obey the Sign or Pay the Fine. Vision Zero advances technology that make vehicles, roads, and drivers safer. And we also promote infrastructure and road safety improvements, which you'll hear about through this panel presentation. So as I said, we're celebrating 5 years of Vision Zero. This slide shows our success in terms of reducing fatalities over the course of time. So you will see that preliminarily we are reporting that we've had 97 crash fatalities in 2022. This is provisional. We hope to confirm this number at some point this month. In 2021, we had 101 fatalities, and then in both 2019 and 2020, we had 100. The problems involved with fatalities tend to be largely behavioral, as you can see here as it relates to the 2022 fatalities. So of those fatalities, 28 were alcohol related, 26% were speed or too fast for conditions, and 68% were unbelted. So as we see our fatalities continue to decline, the problem of lack of seatbelt use becomes much more apparent in terms of the percentage. Again, of the fatal crashes in 2022, 53% involved lane departure, 17% involved young drivers, and 26% involved an older driver. So I don't have time to share data, a lot of data anyway, related to each priority emphasis area, but I wanted to take time to talk about the lack of seatbelt use, because 100% seatbelt compliance by North Dakota vehicle occupants will significantly assist with getting us to zero. Seatbelts do save lives. They are the single most effective safety device to prevent death and serious injury in a motor vehicle crash. Yet about 50 to 60% of fatalities each year are unbelted at the time of the crash. And in 2022, again, we're showing that 68% potentially were unbelted. This slide shows the value of seatbelts by demonstrating the direct correlation between seatbelt use and crash injury severity. Unbelted occupants in crashes in North Dakota, which are represented in light blue, account for the largest percent of fatalities and serious injuries, while belted occupants most commonly receive non-serious or no injuries. Moving on to impaired driving, 203 people died in alcohol-related crashes in North Dakota over the past 5 years. However, progress is being made. The percent of alcohol-related fatalities has decreased over the past 5 years from 48% in 2017 to 32% in 2021. 2022 data is incomplete, but currently we're showing that 29% of those fatalities were alcohol-related. Approximately 1 in 6 adult arrests in North Dakota in 2021 were for DUI. The average blood alcohol content among DUI offenders in North Dakota is 0.157, well over the legal limit of 0.08. We have transitioned our messaging as it relates to this topic. You used to hear the term or the phrase, don't drink and drive, or don't drive drunk. We are now saying drive sober because we feel it's a more clear message. People know when they're not sober. They don't necessarily know when they're drunk or acknowledge that they are. Lane departure is the most common type of crash resulting in injuries in rural areas. Over the past 5 years in North Dakota, 75% of single vehicle fatal lane departure crashes involved overturning or rollover, and 15% involved collisions with fixed objects. If you're interested in more data, you can visit the Vision Zero website. The Highway Safety Division publishes annually a crash summary. So the most current version is from 2021 and can be found on the website. As mentioned previously, Vision Zero implementation includes various strategies, whether they be education, enforcement, engineering, policy, or law change. It is only through the application of strategies in each of these areas that Vision Zero progress is achieved. This slide shows infrastructure solutions implemented through the DOT Programming Division's Highway Safety Improvement Program in calendar year 2022. You'll hear more about the infrastructure safety solutions advanced through Vision Zero by our panelists. Next, I wanted to share some behavioral safety program highlights. These behavioral safety programs are completed in partnership with the DOT's Highway Safety Division, the North Dakota Association of Counties, through the Vision Zero Community Outreach Program and the Regional Vision Zero Coordinators, and many other participating partners. We're grateful for the partnerships that allow these programs to exist. Expanding programs through public and private sector partnerships is a continual goal of Vision Zero. So you'll see on the slide here that we have a program called North Dakota Sober Ride. And that program provides reduced cost ride credits to users. It's offered at select times throughout the course of a fiscal year, usually during holidays or events where alcohol may be prevalent. Since the launch of the program, we have provided more than 1,500 sober rides through the program. The ride credits are graciously sponsored through AAA, the Auto Club Group of North Dakota. And you'll see too that we partnered with Tiger Lily. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with them. They're a country music duo from North Dakota. They have partnered with us for several years now to advance the Drive Sober message. We have Vision Zero priority emphasis area teams that are working continually to advance the strategies within the Vision Zero plan. You've heard about the advocacy work being done by our primary seatbelt law stakeholders. So that's just one example of many of our stakeholders working together to implement strategies. This slide shows our 10th annual Driving Skills for Success event, which was held in Bismarck. It's an event for teens where they're able to rotate through various traffic safety stations to learn about traffic safety. And then they also have the option to participate in the North Dakota Safety Council's Alive at 25 program. This is the work of our Vision Zero coordinators, and you'll hear more about this later this afternoon from the coordinators themselves. But they are everywhere doing everything. They are designating Vision Zero schools. We currently have 7 schools designated and more waiting to be. They've conducted events at sports venues and speedways, coffee shops. They've partnered with civic organizations and many other partners. So this is our Vision Zero Partner Network. If you are not registered with the Vision Zero Partner Network, I would encourage you to do so. Becoming a member of the network formalizes you and your agency's commitment to Vision Zero as a partner. During the registration process, you're able to identify the resources you or your agency can contribute toward the network. And in return, you receive a number of recurring resources that you can use to advance traffic safety education in your business or your communities. Also, I would encourage you to visit the North Dakota Crash Memorial Wall, which is located on the Vision Zero website. The memorial wall serves as a reminder of how motor vehicle crash deaths are real and impacting many families and communities throughout the state. It's a somber reminder of why we do the work of Vision Zero and why the goal of 0 motor vehicle crash fatalities and serious injuries is so important. We currently have more than 30 memorials on the website. And then lastly, if you're not connecting with Vision Zero, I would encourage you to. We're everywhere. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snap, Instagram. We have a YouTube presence, and then, of course, our website. So feel free to interact with us and be more of an active partner in Vision Zero. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Karin. Next, we have John Guevara, the Western Regional Sales Manager for Brifen USA, which manufactures cable guardrail systems. John is based out of Phoenix and covers the 15 western states for Brifen. He'll discuss median cable guardrail and some projects they have completed in North Dakota.
Thank you, Rob. Can you hear me back there? All right, great. My name is John Guevara, and I'm with Brifen USA. Unfortunately, I'm one of those guys that moves around a lot, so I can't stand there. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about high-tension cable barrier. Some of you I've met before, and we've talked about cable barrier. So for those of you who have not been able to see what cable barrier is, Rob, I'm going to ask you to please pass this around. And I hope this is the first and only time you have an experience with cable barrier. On the monitor, you will see the very first high-tension cable barrier in the state of North Dakota was done right here in Bismarck. This was I-94, so some of you have seen it as you're driving down the street. I always start my presentation, and some of you have not seen this before. I ask, why do we install high-tension cable barriers? Some people call it wire rope safety fence. In New Mexico, they call it post and cable. Other areas call it cable guardrail. Call it whatever. A lot of times I just say high tension cable barrier, or HTCB. What we want to do, we want to stop the medium crossover accidents. We also want to stop any runoff roads. Karin mentioned about vehicles going off the highway. So that's another thing we want to do with cable barriers. Also, we want to prevent potential fatalities. I flew into Fargo, and as I was driving from Fargo to here yesterday, I saw a lot of posts that were down. Some people say, yeah, posts are down. What I see is those potential accidents or fatalities that the cable system stopped. So that's the way I look at it myself. High-tension cable barrier also has a lower initial and life cycle cost compared to other safety barriers. When we talk about concrete, we talk about guardrail. Across the world, they're also called safety barriers. So I found a video. It kind of hits home when we talk about safety barriers. In Australia, they call them safety barriers, so I'm going to share this with you.
Last year, safety barriers were hit more than 3,200 times. When a safety barrier is hit, it catches your vehicle like a net, slows you down, and prevents you from hitting a tree or oncoming traffic, saving your life and potentially others. And I should know, because that's exactly how it saved mine.
Safety barriers save lives, getting us towards zero.
If you notice down in Australia and New Zealand, they also have the campaign towards net zero fatalities. First time I saw that, it just put a picture, a person, a human being, to that cable barrier that stopped them from crossing over and having a potential fatality. So I thought that was a pretty cool video itself. Brifen was started in the UK. In the 80s, Brifen came about because the Brighton Rope Company was working with the British Highway. Therefore, Hill and Smith over in England has been working with it. They call it a Bri fence. So that the name is Bri fence. Or if you want to give that British accent, you can say Brifen. It's fine with me. Brifen. Itself, we are installed in 40 of the U.S. states currently, obviously including North Dakota and South Dakota. And it was the very first high-tension cable barrier installation in the United States. There's been tons of low tension used on the shoulder, and some here in Dakota to protect some of the bridges. But the very first one was in North Dakota. It was in Oklahoma City. And it's a system that's designed to capture, absorb, and then redirect that vehicle. So the post is sitting inside the socket, designed to bend and yield upon impact. So keep that in mind when you see them out there. Traditionally, you will not find the post from any manufacturer coming out of the socket and flying out into the highway. I like showing this because on the left is the Hefner Parkway in Oklahoma City. And during a 2-year period, a 10-year period, 2-year period, there was 10 fatalities in that Hefner Parkway, which you see on the left. The 10th person who died in that highway was one of our foreman's sons. So the owner, Steve Wells, took it personally. We got to do something about this area. So what he did, he got approximately 500 feet sent over from Brifen in England. We set it up in our shop, and it worked perfectly. Next thing we did was we talked to the Oklahoma DOT, and they allowed us to install a 5-mile section and a 2-mile section, and that's what you see on the right of this picture. That section is still installed to this day, and there's not been one single cable cut, but we've replaced thousands and thousands of posts in that section. So I think it's very successful. Out of tragedy, one of our foreman's sons died. We were able to bring Brifen to the United States. So that's how we came about. 3/4-inch galvanized steel is passed around, as you've seen that. All cable manufacturers are using a 3/4-inch galvanized. We put anywhere from 2,000 to 7,000 pounds of tension. So if I go out there right now and check the tension, more than likely it's going to be around 5,700 pounds because it's based on the degrees of the rope at that time. So more likely it's about 0 degrees. So 5,700 pounds of tension is going to be added on those. This picture on the left is Glendale, Arizona, where the area I live, and it is cold there today too, by the way. The anchors themselves will not release upon impact. That's compared to other manufacturers. And on the right is Wendover, Utah, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Some of the North Dakota high-tension cable barrier facts that I want to share with you guys. Statewide, you have installations in Bismarck, Fargo, Grand Forks, Jamestown, Valley City, and Dickinson. And I got to say, the people in Dickinson were cool when I was there. Also, the very first installation here was along I-94, and it was in Bismarck, like I mentioned to you. Along I-94 and I-29, there's approximately 455,000 linear feet of high-tension cable. That's approximately 86 miles that have gone in since 2019. As mentioned earlier about the fatalities, 2020, 2021, there was a total of 100 and 100 fatalities, respectfully. These facts come from the actual Vision Zero press release that you did, and these are the lowest fatalities, what I saw, in 15 years. Is that a coincidence? Cable barriers up? Possibly. I don't have all the data, but it's a good coincidence. Some installation pictures real quick in Bismarck. Here's some other ones in Bismarck. Then you have some in Fargo, Grand Forks, and Dickinson, which was the last installation that I did. That's why I said people were cool there. The very first installation was in 2019 on I-94, approximately 24,000 linear feet, which is 4.7 miles of high-tension cable. It was 9 fences, 18 anchors. And a lot of people ask me, because other states use concrete foundations for each of the line posts. North Dakota actually uses a 72-inch driven steel socket down in the ground. So every single line post that you see as you're driving through is going to have a steel socket like this with a soil plate attached to it. So those guys the contractors are usually running 2 and 3 machines pounding that steel socket directly into the ground. And it is noisy, and I turned the volume down, so it's not too bad. This guy knew I was videotaping, so he obviously stopped, got his level, and made sure everything was straight, you know. Thanks. I got him a soda later on and some pizzas for this, but. Every single line post you see is going to have one of these. So examples, because obviously we don't get to see a cable barrier in action. When we test them, we tested in Texas. Yes, we could see that. So I just want to share with you what it looks like. Some of you have seen this already, but I'll still share it. This is a sedan going down into a 4-to-1 slope, and the fence itself is installed on the back side of the slope. Goes down, hits the ditch, comes back up, and again, it's captured, absorbed, and redirected. So that's the first one. The next one's kind of cool. A lot of us have trucks. There you go. I predict it's about a 9.5 to a 10-foot deflection. Deflects out. System did exactly what it was designed to do. Again, capture, absorb, redirect that vehicle. So now you see what it's going to look like if you drive a truck, you hit a system. Our system, the MASH O-post, we call them O-posts because it looks like an O, round post, 50 inches tall. And what we've done is we've identified them A, B, C, D down. The top going down to the bottom. The bottom post itself is 14 inches off the ground and then 7 inches all the way up for each of the 4 posts. With our system, what we do is we have 2 ropes on one side of the post, 2 ropes on the other side. And when you go down and you travel for 10-foot post spacing, you'll see we crisscross our system. That's a weave or a patent that we have, and no other manufacturer can use that weave. And by doing that, we can go miles and miles and miles without having intermediate anchors. Our longest installation to this day is 9 miles with 1 starting anchor and 1 trailing anchor. 9 miles long. Imagine? What they did is, it was in Utah, and they have a section up there with the Bonneville salt flats. And Utah said they were having problems with the cars running off the road and getting stuck in the salt. So it was 11 miles from one exit to the next exit. So that's why they put 9 miles of cable, because it was a shoulder application. I would never recommend that for the DOT in a median application. And our anchors are a non-release anchor. On the left, you see what our starting anchor looks like. 36 feet long is the gating terminal. And then on the right is a trailing anchor, and that's how we terminate our systems. Very simple. The contractor just puts the cable into the anchor plate. It's got a total of 6 holes. 4 are for the cable, and then the smaller ones are for contractor to put a temporary eye bolt. He just puts it down. This was in Arizona, slides it up, and that's how we terminate our system. Very simple. The MASH system, we are approved in 15 states, including Caltrans, California. One of the toughest states to work with, but I like working with California. Here's an example of what Caltrans had to say.
Hi, I'm Miles Cochran, Public Information Officer for Caltrans on the North Coast. Cable median barriers like these have become a popular and cost-effective method at keeping our highways safe and reducing cross-median collisions. This one was recently installed, and days afterward it was put to the test, and it was effective.
An errant motorist drifted into the median of U.S. Highway 101 in Humboldt County, right into the cable median barrier that had just been installed. It prevented what could have been a cross-median head-on collision. Cable median barriers look like cable fences, but how do they work?
The car that runs into it will push the cable over up to about 10 feet and then be redirected.
That's a lot of energy that we can take out of the vehicles in a manner that doesn't affect the driver as intensely as hitting like a concrete wall. We assume when we design these that a car's going to go off travelway and hit that barrier. Now what injuries I'd expect with cable median would be minimal, like minor.
And they were. The driver walked away from his encounter with the cable barrier uninjured. But drivers and passengers aren't the only ones that are safer when dealing with cable barriers.
The advantage the cable barrier has is that it's a little easier to repair compared to a thri-beam.
We just lifted the cables back up, put the posts in place. They were in and out of there in 30 minutes and thrilled because it was that fast to get that system back up and running. And then, of course, when we can do that, we have less exposure for our people.
And to top it all off, the cable barriers tend to look nicer and interact better with the surrounding environment.
It provides less of a visual obstruction It's not necessarily easier, but small animals are easier to negotiate, and it is less expensive to construct.
We don't consider our cable median barriers being visually impacting to our ocean views or our watershed views, and that's a nice feature too. I think the Coastal Commission and some of the other agencies really appreciates that.
For more information on these, just go to the Caltrans website and search cable median barriers. For Caltrans Newsflash, I'm Miles Cochran.
So that's what Caltrans said about cable barriers. In the video, they're using our older NCHRP 350 system, which is our Z post. If you look down, it looks like a Z. Now here in your state, you're only using the MASH system, which is the O post. One of the things that I try to talk to the different engineers, when you're putting together a project, make sure specifications are important. We all want to make sure that we have a safety factor, and I'm going to use an example here, the factor of safety of 1.76. Our cables come in lengths of 1,000 feet, and after each 1,000 feet, we extend it out with a turnbuckle, like what you see there. And what happens is that if you go longer than 1,000 foot for a single segment, it's hard to maintain that tension over a long period of time. At one point, we used to do 2,000 feet and realized that 1,000 feet is going to maintain that tension. And this is with the manufacturer of cable. We put the factory swedged fittings. I know some manufacturers don't do that. They send a swedge machine, so the contractor has to do it on job site. Brifen sends those swedges already put on and makes it faster for the contractor to put in. For example, if we want to get a factor of safety, the end anchor is going to use concrete. With Brifen, you'd only have to use 9.26 cubic yards of concrete. Another manufacturer has to use 12.5 because they have higher tensions going into that anchor. As I mentioned earlier, 0 degrees with Brifen is 5,700 pounds, but another manufacturer, 0 degrees, is going to be 8,200 pounds. So it's very important to determine you cannot use the same size anchor for one manufacturer as you do another. So each manufacturer's end anchor and the amount of concrete is specific to that project and that topography and that soil information. So it's very important to do a soil analysis. Why? Here's what happens if you don't do a soil analysis, especially during the wintertime. That anchor can come out. The length of need anchors, or in this case, you see them, they come out. Earlier we talked about tension cables, 0 degrees. Well, we and other manufacturers have a chart, and depending on what the temperature of the cable, you have the cable out there right now, it's probably a little warm. There's been times where I go out to my car, especially when I'm visiting your state, and that thing is cold, like it's been in a freezer. So it depends on the temperature of the cable itself and not the ambient temperature. So again, if it's 0 degrees, our system says 5,700 pounds. Deflection is based, MASH is a performance-based specifications. And a lot of times with the old NCHRP 350, you'd come out and say, I want a 10-foot post spacing or 12-foot post spacing. With MASH, what we're saying is you tell us what deflection you want for that area or that segment, because in some cases you can go with a 10, 12, 15-foot deflection. So as an example, in this scenario, if I want an 8-foot deflection with our system, it'd be a 7-foot post spacing. You have 754 posts in that mile. Let's jump up and say I only want a 10-foot deflection. Now we can go with a 14-foot post spacing, therefore 377 posts in that mile. So you go from 754 to 377, that's a savings for the state, as long as that highway can take that 10-foot deflection. So keep that in mind. We're starting to see more and more states using it on rural roads. This example on the left is from, my left, sorry, you're right, is in Oregon on US 26. That had an 8-foot median, and they went with a 5-foot post spacing. Also, on the other end is California. They're using that in the median, which is a small median. Here's what an impact will look like in a narrow median. I get people saying, okay, we put on a narrow median, great. What's it going to look like? In this case, they reduced the post spacing because of the curve or radius, and you notice in this video, the vehicle will stop from going over to the oncoming traffic. Yes, this video is from Australia, and they drive on the wrong side of the road. So perfect example if you're considering some of your highways, US 93 and some of the smaller highways as you travel, look into putting possible cable in the median. Just reduce the post spacing. You see the car continues on. Now, we're also seeing more and more roadside applications in the cities. On the first picture there is in Utah, and there's actually a bicyclist. I couldn't take a great picture, but they put this because there's a bike path on one side. On the right is the Bonneville salt flat that I was talking about. That's all salt. The white that you see, it is not snow. It's salt. And the vehicles were running off, getting stuck in that. So that segment right there, like I said, is 9 miles long. People talk about semi-trucks. No manufacturer of cable barrier has crash tested a semi-truck. But once in a while, we get lucky. On the left, you see in Grand Forks, that stopped the vehicle. The middle picture was on I-5 in southern Oregon. On the right, on the asphalt, that's actually northbound 5 freeway. This vehicle was traveling southbound on I-5 freeway, went through the grass median, hit the cable barrier, took out 71 posts, which is 710 feet, and did not cross over to the other side northbound traffic. And then on the far right, this was here in Jamestown, North Dakota. I found that picture. But I wanted to share with you what Minnesota had to say about cable barriers.
The following incident occurred on Friday, December 10, around 11 a.m. in the southbound lanes of I-35, just north of Faribault, which is south of the Twin Cities. Minnesota State Patrol reported the crash involved ultimately 7 vehicles, 5 passenger cars, and 2 semi-trucks, including one semi-truck which obviously jackknifed. The southbound lanes were closed for approximately 2 hours before one lane was reopened. Incredibly, there were no injuries reported with the pileup. The State Patrol said it received 286 total crash reports associated with the day's snowfall, with 21 injuries and 21 jackknife semis across the state. A closer analysis of this crash event shows how the median cable barrier helped prevent serious injuries by preventing several cars, including both semis, from going into oncoming lanes. While the barrier did limit some lateral movement for the vehicles, it ultimately played a major role in preventing more significant forces from being involved. MN Safety is always the first to bring you these types of incredibly compelling, real-life videos to help promote traffic safety awareness, especially as it relates to winter driving. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share these videos and get out the word. You won't see videos like this anywhere else.
Like I said, we don't crash test trucks or semis, but sometimes we get lucky. So I wanted to share that with you. This was on Minnesota's website. One of the last videos I want to share, and we talked earlier about vision of net zero. I found this video also in Australia, and I wanted to share their Road to Zero campaign.
So last year, 213 people died on our roads. What do you think would be a more acceptable number?
Acceptable? 70 maybe? Probably 70.
Can you send 70? Actually, this is what 70 people looks like.
It's my family.
So now, what do you think would be a more acceptable number?
0. 0.
I hope your state and other states one day gets to 0. At the end of the day, what we say in Brifen world, because our families drive where you do. These are examples of construction company that I've worked with in Eureka, California, Utah, and then on the far, those 3 ladies, young ladies, that's my family. That's my daughters. We're at my youngest daughter's university graduation. So end of the day, we say we're, because our families drive where you do. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it, and then we'll have questions at the end. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. Thanks for the plug for Dickinson. We do have an engineering opening if anyone's interested. DOT.nd.gov careers. Our last speaker is Donovan Slag, Traffic Operations Engineer from the North Dakota Department of Transportation. Donovan is a professional traffic operations engineer. He's been with the traffic operations section of the DOT for 15 years. He'll be talking about safety corridors.
So, safety corridors. Well, on my agenda here, we'll go through where are we doing the current and proposed safety corridors, why are we doing them, what can you expect to see on them, and how are they operating so far. So our first round of safety corridors were located on highways 85, 52, and 83. These locations were determined by crash densities and through input from districts and through DOT management. A closer look here, the 85 corridor that went from the intersection of 68 to Watford City, the west side of Watford City, that was done in 2019. And then Highway 52, the Minot area, that starts over at they call it Brooks Junction, where 52 and 2 intersect, and then through Minot, Burlington, down through Sawyer, and then through Velva. That was also done 2019. And then on 83, north of Bismarck here, starting at 1804 up through Wilton and through Washburn. And so that one was done in 2020. So that was kind of our first round of safety corridors. Our most recent is a long stretch. It's 70 miles starting at Belfield on Highway 85 up past Highway 200 all the way through Watford City. So it basically connects where that other one stopped. That one was, like I said, 70 miles, so that was our longest stretch. So why are we doing safety corridors? The 2018 Vision Zero plan identified safety corridors as a priority safety strategy. So you can see some of the bullet points. So some of the other bullet points are incorporated into the safety corridors, some of those different safety features. So this is, of course, what we don't want to see. This is the whole purpose of the safety corridors, and especially not just regular crashes, but the fatal and serious injury crashes. We want to avoid seeing stuff like that. So what can you see on them? A safety corridor is a highway segment selected for more law enforcement. So you'll see more highway patrol presence. There are more citations. You'll see just more HP presence. And we also had some driver education, including news releases, social media posts. Before we started them, we put a lot of news releases out and tried to get people aware of what we're doing. And then low-cost engineering countermeasures. And then one thing to emphasize with the safety corridors, they're not like a permanent thing. They'll be like decommissioned after 3 to 5 years. So more so the law enforcement and the HP presence will go back to normal. But the engineering, like the signs and stuff, they may stay longer. So it's not like we're going to go at the end of the 5 years, we're not going to go pull out the signs and take out the stripes. So we got a lot of pictures here. I'll show you what can you expect to see different. And our most recent corridor, it's 64 miles of 2-lane, 6 miles of 4-lane. So 252 new signs, over 1 million linear feet of new markings. Another thing that we did on that project was added rumble strips through the turn lanes, 4 digital message signs, and then 7 speed feedback signs. And 5 of those were solar powered, and I'll show you those in a minute. One of the big things is wider markings. So normally our pavement markings are 4-inch width. On the safety corridors, we did the 6-inch for the center lines and the edge lines. And like on this picture, where there's double yellow, we did a 3-inch gap between the yellow, and then also you can see the pavement uses wet reflective markings, so you get better visibility, especially during like wet road conditions. Last year's project used a fast curing epoxy that reduces wheel tracking and has greater UV stability. And the retroreflective optics, they did a double drop system. So first they did the all-weather elements, and then the second was the glass beads. And so basically these spheres, these microscopic spheres, they help get the headlight beam back to the driver, so there's more visibility of the markings. There's just another view of prior to it was the view of the grooving before they put down the epoxy markings. So I don't know if you can see there's a grasshopper there for scale. One of our North Dakota grasshoppers. So here's just another shot of fresh markings this is on the US 52 corridor. And then normally for our turn lanes, where the taper is, it's just an open gap. But on the safety corridors, we put these skip markings. So they kind of help guide the driver, and especially on like curves like this. If you look at this picture and imagine maybe it's not a sunny day like this, it's like foggy or snowy, and you're driving and you're following the edge of the road, it's helpful so you don't make a mistake and inadvertently go into the turn lane when you don't want to. That was near Burlington. Where we had delineators, we replaced those with the larger delineators. So typically they're like, I think they're a 4x4 diamond, and these are 3-inch by 9-inch. Similarly, like approaching a bridge or something, there's guardrail reflectorized plates. And this is a nice shot showing kind of like at night along a curve how much more visible it is. So it really helps you reduce the chance of making an error when you're driving. I found a before picture on Google Maps, and then I did kind of an after showing, and you can kind of see the comparison of before and after with we added the chevron signs on that curve, and then the wider markings. So where we have no passing zones, we also added that written on the pavement. So the pavement markings do not pass. And then at the beginning of the passing zone, we added some signs, do not pass sign on the right, and then the pennant on the left side of the do not pass zone. So when you come out, so this is looking south on 52. The other direction, on the back side, there's a pass with care sign. So when it goes back to the passing is allowed, there's that confirmation of that sign. So where we're approaching a speed reduction area, this is on 85 by, I think this is north of Belfield. So we did the reduced speed ahead right on the pavement. But on our first round of corridors, we did these, what they're called speed reduction bars. So another name is optical speed bars, and these are transverse strips placed at gradually decreasing distances. So the rationale is to increase drivers' perception of speed and cause them to reduce their speed. It's kind of like an illusion kind of thing, is the idea. So here's what it looks like from an aerial view, and you can see we also have the actual speed limit right where the speed limit changes. It shows you that's 50 or whatever, 50 miles per hour right on the pavement. Another issue to address the speeds is the vehicle speed feedback signs. So these, you've probably seen these approaching this. It shows you your speed. It also has the newer ones have that little strobe on there. So I think these are effective at getting people to be at least aware of what they're going, how fast they're going. And then you can see there's the solar powered on some of them, or they have that panel on there. And so this is by Washburn. Just another simple fix is the higher visibility for the pedestrian sign. It's fluorescent yellow-green instead of the old-fashioned yellow sign. This is by Washburn, just kind of a combination of everything, the speed reduction markings, the pavement, speed limit pavement marking, and then the vehicle speed feedback sign. This is just a picture of a new concrete pad with the digital message sign from last year. So these are available to show various safety messages, road conditions. These will soon have the ability to show travel times. So they're working on getting some new software and some sensors to be able to do that. And then, so this is also, you'll see this on the safety corridors. So this sign will get taken out when the safety corridors get decommissioned, but everything else may stay in place. So how are they operating so far? So we're monitoring 4 measures of effectiveness. And so this is on our first round of safety corridors. Crash data, citations, warnings, traffic volumes, traffic speeds. So this is just preliminary before and after data. It's take it with a grain of salt, but it's showing some good signs. The total crashes went down from 354 to 233, so 34% reduction in all crashes. And if you take out the property damage crashes, so these are the various injury level crashes, it went down 21%. So it's encouraging signs. The Highway Patrol has been keeping track of the citations and warnings that they're issuing. So they went from like 3,000 to 4,000 per year. So you definitely see more HP presence. And then we're also monitoring the traffic volumes. The safety corridors probably won't change the traffic so much, but just going to use this to kind of look at, like, compare it with the crashes. And like on 52 and 83, the traffic's pretty steady. And 85, it did go down a little bit. So part of the crashes went down might be part of with the traffic volume going down. It's hard to say exactly, but that's another one of our measures. So we did a traffic speed before and after the first round safety corridors were put in. DOT, they use these tube counters, and they can measure the vehicle speed by the the distance that the tubes are separated a certain distance, and they're able to get the actual speeds of all the vehicles. So we got, I think it was like 90,000 vehicles before and after. The before data was collected in July 2019, and then the after was in May, June of 2021. So here's the results. So on average, the before, people were going about 3 miles an hour over the speed limit, and then on the after, it was about 2 miles an hour over. So slight decrease. And then if we look at the common 85th percentile, that's about 9 mile an hour over before, and then that went down to 8. And then I think this is pretty good, that the percentage of vehicles that are going over 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, that went down from 9% to about 7%. So, so after we decommission, we're going to be looking at some other future corridors. Highway 22 up from 73 to 23, and then near Devil's Lake on 57 and 20, and then our first interstate highway safety corridor on Highway 29 by Fargo. So with that, we did get some recognition for our first round safety corridors already. So those of you that worked on it, give yourself a pat on the back for that. So yeah, today I just went through the where, why, what, and how of our safety corridors. That's all I got.
Okay, we went a little bit long, so if you have questions, try to catch Karin, John, or Donovan out in the hallway or later today. Thanks.